So I was on PT today and we were all formed up ready to go, and the PTI came out and he said his little bits and bobs, and at the end he said, does anybody want to opt out of this session? And I thought that was a little bit weird because I had never said it when I was a PTI and I had never heard it before. But now across units throughout the British Army, organised physical training activities are now getting put in place as coronavirus restrictions are settling down. So, did the PT session, no one put their hand up saying they wanted to opt out. But I wanted to know what this opt-out policy was. And the opt-out policy is personnel are not to participate in physical activity of any nature where, having been briefed on the nature of the activity by the chain of command, they do not feel sufficiently well enough to take part and should inform the activity owner if this is the case. This policy relates to both formal physical training sessions and to broader military training or tasks involving physical activity. Units must ensure that those instructing or leading to physical training or other military training activities involving physical activity are aware of this policy as an exertional collapse mitigation measure. As a key mitigation measure and for completeness, the opt-out control measure must be written into all generic risk assessments that involve physical activity. The physical activity opt-out policy does not provide a bypass mechanism for activities that must be completed. Where an individual is needed to opt out of a physical activity that formed part of a formal career course, output standard assessment, operational readiness requirement, or other mandatory activity, the chain of command must arrange an alternative time when the individual is well enough to take part. Opting out of physical activity due to feeling unwell does not automatically necessitate that the individual reports sick to medical services or submits a self-certified sickness absence. Many conditions, like the common cold, are self-limiting and suitable for self-management. Where there is wider concern about an individual's health, for instance, recurrent episodes of opting out over a short period or for specific activities, the service personnel should be signposted to seek appropriate medical review. So, essentially, you can pretty much opt out of all PT. But is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? And when I say opt out of all PT, if you start opting out for a long period of time on certain events, then you are going to get signposted. Or if you're looking hungover on a particular morning and then you decide to opt out with no reason other than you're hungover, you might have disciplinary reactions. However, what we're going to go through now are the pros and cons for this opt-out measure that's been installed by the British Army. So, the pros, for me, I've got 4 pros that I can think of. If you've got any more, put them in the comment section. So I think the good thing of this is managing injury. For instance, before, if you had a little niggling injury, you'd have to go to the med centre and they'd put you on a light duties chit. Some people don't want to go on a light duties chit because the niggling injury might just need a couple of days to get over. But if you're running on it, or if you're doing press-ups on a bad shoulder, that can aggravate it. And all you want to do is just a couple of days to stretch off. So I think to manage an injury, an opt-out measure could be good because you wouldn't have to go to the med centre. Number 2 is that on some mornings, you just don't feel great. It's not like a cold, you haven't got a temperature, but you just don't feel great, but you don't want to go to the med centre because they might bed you down. So what you really want to do is just miss fizz and in fact just go take on water, get a couple of paracetamol and just try and drive off what is actually making you feel a little bit unwell. So I think that could be a good thing. I think you'll probably see less injuries on PT now as well, with regards to managing your own injury and some people feeling a little bit unwell where before they couldn't even go to the med centre, they didn't want to go to the med centre, then you're more susceptible to injuries when you're going on a run, if you're going on the obstacle course, a tab, if you're doing a HIIT workout, circuit, strength training, that can add to your injury trouble. So I think we may start seeing less injuries on PT, which then takes the pressure off the likes of the ERIs, which are the specialists within the military. And of course, as a follow-on from all that, you're going to see less pressure in the med centre for people who for people that really don't need to go, but they have to go because they know if they don't have a light duties chair, then they won't be able to get off PT. So taking that away, giving them the opt-out policy, then stops the amount of people going to the med centre to get their light duties chip for a couple of days. So that takes the pressure off the med centre. Now we're going to go into what I personally think is the downside to all this, where what you will get it, is people who are going to dodge PT. And the British Army built itself on professionalism, attitude, appropriate behaviour. Is it appropriate to start missing PT, which is a key factor of when we go on tour? And that's what you're going to get. You're going to get people dodging PT. So, for instance, we work off what's called the wet bulb globe test within the military. And when it's a certain temperature outside, all PT stops. So what could happen with this opt-out part is that, well, you think it's going to get hot today. So therefore, half an hour into the lesson, you think, well, the temperature might rise by 1 or 2 degrees, which means we'll have to stop anyway. I'm going to use that as an excuse. So you'll tell the PTI, actually, I'm not happy doing this because I think the temperature's going to rise. I'm opting out. And those are the sort of things that are going to happen. People making up actually quite good excuses just to get out of a phys session. And you're also going to have the snowball effect. So if one person does it, they opt out within that parade, they're going to opt out, and then somebody else might think, actually, if they're getting away with it, I'm going to get away with it too. And then they'll opt out, and another one opts out. And PTIs put a lot of effort into their phys programs, a lot of effort when they're taking lessons, and they might set out a whole circuit for 30 people. The next thing, 10 of them have opted out, and now he's only got 20, and his lesson might not actually work. So that's another problem we're going to get, is that snowball effect as well. What you're also going to get is legitimate people are going to get stigmatized from this. If loads of people are opting out, there might be that one person actually who's legitimate. He's fit anyway, but he might have a little niggling injury, or he might have that little cold, which for the pros part. And in fact, and he might think, I can't opt out. So I know the type of people that opt out and they get stigmatized. So if I opt out now from this, I'm going to be put in exactly the same bracket as them. So potentially it could have an adverse effect if there's no real integrity within that team. Therefore, you're going to start losing that team spirit as well. And you have the seniors versus juniors lead by example piece. So once a senior does it, someone, say a sergeant, staff sergeant WO2, once they do it, and somebody cottons on that they do it, there's nothing stopping anyone else doing it either. Absolutely nothing. And people are so influential within the military. So what could happen is then a senior might opt out for whatever reason. That junior will be like, right, nice one, carte blanche, I'm opting out as well. The next thing, you have hardly any people doing PT. Look, this is worst case scenario. It might not happen. This is worst case scenario. But these are the things that do happen within the military. But not only that, where I read out one of the paragraphs on here, this doesn't just relate to PT. This could relate to drill practice when you're marching around, can relate to going on exercise, digging shell scrapes. This has been put in to absolutely everything where you need a risk assessment because physical activity is involved. So they're my thoughts. Anyway, they're my thoughts. You might have more thoughts. Some of you might think it's a good thing. Some of you might think it's a really bad thing. But those are my thoughts. Tell me your thoughts. Leave them in the comment section. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? I really want to know. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of it. But I've been in the army now for such a long time. I'm very much set in my ways. But I just want to know what you think as well. Other than that, hope you enjoyed the video and it's provided some clarity, or in fact actually just informed you of the opt-out policy. And take care. Bye.